Hello and welcome to the after party. I'm No White Guilt, and I am with the Great Order. The Honors Roll Call highlights and celebrates those who have conscientiously committed to monthly gifts in my work for White Wellbeing. And appearing on the All-Stars portion of the Honors Roll Call is the one and only, our very own Mrs. Jess Horst. Thank you so very much, dear lady. And those remaining on the honors roll call are Albertus, Bridge Burner Bear, Cheryl, Saibon, our very own Dainty Brighton, and Dr. Jellyfingers, the one and only Elaine Sabatino, Euphemia, who doesn't know Fornull, Greg G and Greg M, Inquipper, Jason, got a great name there, Jim, two Johns, John G and John N, and two Johnnies, Johnny and Johnny J, Omar, Promethean Epoch, and that's exactly what we're in. Richard J, Robert, Ron Ronson, awesome name, Ryan, Sammy, St. McFreeman, Tasia, Thomas, and finally Trent. I appreciate your support and sense of moral responsibility to White Wellbeing. There is no place where your financial gifts go farther and more effectively than right here for White Wellbeing. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are not one of these good people, please be sure to thank them. As for the crown winner of last week, the crown goes to Bifurcation, to 41 BMC and Lord Wolfshield, both gifting $10. Thank you so much. They were the two who were financially contributing that day. No second place, so we'll just give them second place as well. Thank you both very much, dear brothers. You can financially gift on Entropy at 15%, which will be up in a moment, and you'll be able to watch the stream there, hopefully. Remember, it's the Discipline with NWG. You should find that down in the description below. You can ask and vote on questions there in the question or Talk Heaven widget, as it is colloquially known. And you can also financially gift on Cash App at 6%. Jared and I evenly share the financial gifts with our guests here on the after party. And the wonderful guest of ours today, Fullmoon Ancestry, has decided to give us his portion to put toward White Wellbeing. Once again, showing how sterling of an individual he is. And so having said that, on tap today is the one and only rising star, Fullmoon Ancestry. And this individual, ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you in just a moment. I'll pass it over to him, but I want to tell you, he has jumped in brilliantly, both feet, into service to White Wellbeing, using the lexicon, using the dialectics, as many of you have and are having just immense success. And having this fantastic success, Fullmoon Ancestry is out there. He is spreading the word as one of the apostles of going free in a time that we need it more than ever. And this at a time that the rest of the so-called dissident right is on fire, and like the Hindenburg, and falling to the ground, nothing but flames. And we are growing a rising star, a phoenix from the ashes of that colossal waste of time. And so, Mr. Fullmoon Ancestry, will you please introduce yourself to our audience, tell them where they can find you, and then we will turn this, what inevitably will be a stellar conversation, on over to the intrepid Mr. George.
Thank you very much, Jason, and hello to everyone watching, and happy Friday to everyone. I am doing great. I'm very happy. This is one of my favorite streams, and these are two of some of my favorite, not only content creators, but community leaders. When I think of community leaders here in the dissident right, I think of Jared Taylor, Mark Collette, Frothy Midjord, and of course, Jason Köhne and Jared George. I'm big fans of both of these guys and their works. They have influenced me, and you can see that influence on Countercurrents. I write a weekly article on Countercurrents as Fullmoon Ancestry. I have a Twitter account, which is Fullmoon Ancest1. And from there, you can catch me on streaming services of other platforms and when I go on guests of other shows. And it's quite an honor to be here.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to speak with you. And for anyone listening in replay, All of our guest links, as always, will be on the posts on our sites, so you can find him there if you're intrigued by what you hear, and I'm sure you will be. So speaking of intriguing, we'll start with this. What is behind the name Fullmoon Ancestry? I had to ask that for starters.
That's the $1 million question.
Have you explained this before, or is this an exclusive?
I probably have explained before, but why not? One more time doesn't hurt.
Sure.
Everyone knows that I grew up listening to heavy metal from the 80s and the 90s. And in Europe, the full moon, that is a theme that is used in a lot of heavy metal bands from the 90s. There was a Temple of the Full Moon, a Circle of Artists. There was a Full Moon recording studio. And it is a theme that is used in numerous bands in extreme heavy metal. And I am a big fan of history, of lineage, heritage. So when I was playing with words of, okay, what pseudonym or would I write under, it could have been Full Moon Heritage, Full Moon Lineage, Full Moon Ancestry, just clicked with me.
What do you have any idea of why that is, with Full Moon being so prevalent in the metal scene?
Yeah, I could probably talk about that for days, but I think to summarize, I think there is a lot of mythology that goes into or inspires a lot of classic and heavy metal bands. And when you think of full moon, well, you think of, okay, maybe a werewolf, and a werewolf is a theme that a lot of bands have written about. And of course, there's a lot of inspiration when it comes to heavy metal. There is European mythology, there is European history. There is something about a full moon in the night, amongst clouds and darkness, and you see the shimmering of the moon. It is kind of awe-inspiring, and I think that is why it's so popular in heavy metal.
Yeah, that's definitely a theme I want to keep in the back of our minds as we speak today, and it won't be hard because I think it's always in the forefront of our minds, and that is the biospirit. I'm sure the term you're familiar with that Jason coined, how that our European spirit expresses itself through different art forms and different cultural forms that we are just innately attracted to and create ourselves, and how that's been hidden from us, taken away from us, or muted in a way that people don't even realize what it is, kind of like water to a fish. So definitely keep that thread in mind. I know that you're good at that, and that'll be a big theme today. But why don't we take a little time for folks to get to know you? As Jason said, you showed up and you've jumped in, and we love that. Doing your own streams on DLive, writing, it seems like weekly for Countercurrents, and definitely check out his articles, everybody. Again, we'll have links. But why don't you tell us just a little about how you got here, what your journey was? Did you always have a sense of your heritage, or was it something that you discovered because of all of the things going on in the world? What was, as they say, your red pill story? And take as much time as you need with that.
I definitely want to keep it brief. I don't want to put people to sleep, but I am originally from the US. I am of proud Danish descent and Karelian descent. That Karelia is the area between Finland and Russia. Father's side came from Denmark, mother's side came from there. And so I both have grandparents that came from Europe. That is probably a large part of it. I was very lucky to be born to parents in the US that were married and wanted to have me. And my father was a police officer. And growing up, I found out very quickly that what we consider to be the narrative, or at least in relation to crime statistics, well, I want to watch my tongue here, but I definitely got a rude awakening as a child when it came to specific demographics and criminal statistics. I'll leave it at that. I also found myself living in an area where maybe white people of European descent did not maintain their majority population. And within my lifetime, I saw that people that maybe looked like me or acted like me or maybe thought like me became not the majority population, if I could say that. And also through heavy metal is that where the majority of the people who did not look like me did not listen to rock music. Maybe they listened to pop or hip hop or rap and R&B. I drew a connection ever since I was 6 years old to heavy metal when I first heard an Iron Maiden album somewhere in time when I snuck into my cousin's room during Christmas and was scared by the cover art, but put it in a cassette tape. And the song that played was Alexander the Great. So that started my heavy metal process. So I just think that everyone goes through their journey, but mine was simply listening to heavy metal, having a father who was a police officer, and also having my parents instill a sense of nostalgia and heritage and ancestry. And I think in one of your articles, Jared, if I'm not mistaken, you quoted Karl Marx at the beginning where he said, if you take away the history of a people, you can easily persuade them and discourage them from having an identity. So I'm very lucky to have my parents, and I'm very lucky to grow up with heavy metal, and the fact that they instilled that sense of identity in me is great. To just fast forward, 2015, I was very interested in what Donald Trump was saying. He wasn't one of us, but he was the first person to speak to some of the issues that people like me in the US had concerns about. And I started going to rallies and started watching content like Red Ice. And I actually had a YouTube channel in 2016. And once Trump got elected, that channel got shut down. I went about my life, but lost a contract simply because of my politics, or just keeping my mouth shut wasn't good enough. So I went to Eastern Europe for 2 years, and that's when I started going to concerts, conferences, and events in the dissident right sphere, and met a lot of great people. So I've been going to these events for a while. I know that I've just kind of started, but it took me about close to 2 years to really decide, am I ready to put my voice out, to put my face out there? And that's why it's been a little prolonged, but I'm very happy to be in this sphere, in the dissident right, nationalist sphere, white advocate sphere, whatever you want to call it. Very happy to be here.
What you said about you keeping your mouth shut wasn't enough. So I picked up on that. So you were in a situation where you were, without going into unnecessary detail, of course, it kind of expected to be like, oh yeah, I whatever, hate Trump or this or that, or kind of go along with the talking points. And just because you didn't go along with that, or didn't go along with something that was in the direction of anti-whiteness, whether explicit or implicit, that affected work opportunities. Is that right?
Most definitely. I've been very lucky, even privileged, to have some of the jobs and careers that I've had. Without giving too much information, I did find myself around 2017 with a contract job for a very big high-tech company. And everyone around me was, as Noah Gill would say, had talked a lot about mean pathogens and spread a lot of anti-white propaganda. But I had a nice job. I made good money. I kept my mouth shut. But they would constantly ask me, what do you think about this, Fullmoon? What do you think about that, Fullmoon? I played stupid. I don't know. I don't know anything about anything. I just want to focus on my job. You guys are smarter than me. But it came to me, they asked me, okay, they were talking about Trump. And they said, well, what do you think about Trump? I don't know. I lied. I said, I don't know anything about politics. Well, don't you hate Donald Trump? Won't you disavow Donald Trump? And I paused. And then when they saw that, they knew, oh, he's a Trump supporter. The next day, my contract ended. I don't want you guys feeling sorry for me. This was the silver lining, because it was at that point that I looked for another job, got an online job, and was able to live in Eastern Europe for about 2.5 years. But I got off lucky, because there are so many people who end up in my position and they get far worse. They can't find another job of a similar pay rate. Maybe they get blacklisted. I feel so sympathetic for people that are in the shoes, and it happens more often than we think.
It's something we speak to a lot here. It comes up, and again, feel free at any point to comment on this or weave it in. But this idea that it's, when we get up here and we do what we do, obviously we see the explicit deplatforming and the censorship and everything that we deal with when we get up on a platform and do what we do. But for everyone out there, it's not always so explicit. It's come up a lot where, and this also addresses the whole perspective that, is when people try to poo-poo it and say, well, you think there's like a conspiracy of people that are, they're getting together in positions of power and they're affecting media and finance. It happens in a very soft way. There are just kind of these social signals, there are rewards and punishments. And again, we've discussed a lot, especially in culture, in the arts, something we're all interested in, how it's not like some memo went out and they said, okay, you can't sign artists to your record label, or you can't have an actor or actress rise to A-list ranks in Hollywood if they're X, Y, and Z. There doesn't have to be a paper trail of some kind of grand conspiracy of people meeting and saying, okay, from here on in, this is how it's going to be. It's just this funnel effect of all of the social give and take. And we've arrived at a place where, as you're expressing, as you're telling from your own experience, that this is what people are being funneled into, that you have to act and think a certain way and be with the program, or you're not going to be involved. And that's why we do what we do, why we're involved with people like White Art Collective, because we're adamant about the fact that we need our own scene, our own thing. When we look out to the media that is presented mainstream, we don't see ourselves in it. And there are plenty of talented people. My heart breaks for the thought of talented people among our ranks who are sitting at home right now and feeling lost, absolutely lost, with they know they have this talent for writing, art, journalism, whatever it may be. And if they don't know what we're doing here, they will automatically assume, well, I'm not that kind of person. I don't have what it takes. A lot of people just assume you have to be this certain way to be an artist or a journalist or whatever it may be. So if you have anything to say to that, please feel free. If not, I have a few other things we can keep going with.
I definitely agree with that. A lot of these things are very subtle. And I'll say this, I've worked for a few companies that would be considered, okay, big tech, Silicon Valley companies. And while I definitely appreciate those opportunities, I can't overestimate just how biased these cultures are, that if they get any whiff or scent of dissenting opinion or someone who may have different views, those people will be outed. And not only will they lose their contract jobs or actual job, if they have benefits, they will get blacklisted. I've seen it before, and I got lucky. So I don't want to paint a sad picture, tell a sad story. This actually worked out for me, but sadly, it just doesn't work out for all our peoples. But I will say this, guys, if you told me 2 years ago that I would be writing for my favorite website, I wouldn't have believed you. So anyone watching here, if you think you have any ilk or inch of talent, try it out, practice. I recommend that you don't know how talented you are until you try. And even if it doesn't come out, there is worth and effort in producing something, creating something, and especially now, because we need all of the arts. We need artists, we need programmers, we need musicians, we need filmmakers. We are the anti-whites, or the people who are against us. They brag about marching through the institutions, and not only the educational and political and economic institutions, they also have done this through art. And it's about time that, thanks to you guys, the Grudge Parties, the White Art Collective, we are seeing not only art for our own people, but these are really great artists.
Yeah, and again, feel free to weave in about that. I want to get on to Eastern Europe and some of the aspects of your experience there. But quickly, just to wrap up what you were talking about with growing up, you said that you had your parents who were instilling your heritage in you and some nice advantages that way. What was it like with peers, with friends? Were there a few other people growing up you were able to be friends with who had a healthy family and healthy sense of their heritage that you were able to connect with? Or did it make you, kind of like what you said with your job, obviously ostracized, because even kids can kind of sniff each other out, even if they're not going to be as intellectual about it as adults. There's still certain instincts, especially when you're young and people want to fit in. There's that biological need to fit in with the group, especially when you're a teenager. What was that like?
As you guys have brilliantly explained, and Jason Köhne has brilliantly explained, the meme pathogens start so early. I can remember my earliest, even memories in kindergarten, that they would push a lot of anti-white narratives, particularly on the students that who are of Western descent, Westmen, young little Westmans, even in kindergarten, first grade. And now I consider myself lucky because maybe back then it was subtle, it was more implicit. But when I talk to people, maybe my age, who have kids, it is overt, it is explicit. One of the reasons why heavy metal was such a big part of my red pill journey was because I saw in my lifetime people of European descent become to drop from the majority population. And I did have some type of camaraderie with the other kids that maybe looked like me, and they were the ones that listened to heavy metal. They were the ones that had a hard time describing, but could at least share their experiences of these meme pathogens. And I think that, of course, this isn't always the case, but I think at least from my area and of that time, people that listen to heavy metal are more open to, at least back then, talk about some of the issues that we discuss and our concerns.
Right. As I said, I want to get to Eastern Europe, but before your experiences there, I have a particular question. So it sounds like the timing worked out so that you started going to IRL events and some forums and meetings, as you explained, once you got over there. So you were experiencing it, you were kind of coming out and starting to network more, meet people in person as an American in Eastern Europe. So I'm curious about that particular aspect first, of like you're first getting into this, and there's on the one hand this sense of white solidarity, but on the other hand, of course, you are still to some degree a foreigner, because obviously all of us, we have different ethnicities and they're white peoples, as we say. There's not one white people. So what was that like?
Sure. To give a little backstory, after college, I spent quite a bit of time in Norway and Denmark. And then I found myself having a contract job in near Dresden, Germany, and spent quite a bit of time in the eastern part of Germany. A big click off to all our friends from the Erzgebirge. That is their regional saying of dig up, because that's a mining community. So it wasn't my first time overseas, and I got some experience being in Norway, Denmark, and Germany, being overseas, starting fresh, starting to make friends, trying to date women. But yes, in 2017, I did go to Eastern Europe. And in Eastern Europe, I lived in Ukraine, Poland, Hungary, and Latvia. And the first year that I was there was very tough. I was able to date women there, but it was tough for me to make friends. What really happened, it was almost like a domino or butterfly effect, as I went to a heavy metal concert in Ukraine where I met some community leaders. They invited me out to Etno Future in Tallinn, Estonia, and I got to not only see and hang out and have dinner with a lot of community leaders and content creators. Some people saw and recognized me from my YouTube channel back in 2016. So it was just that stroke of luck that someone saw my old channel, and then they invited me out to dinner, and I got to rub elbows with the best. I actually got to see Jared Taylor's speech in Europe before he was banned. And he is not only a great speaker, but a very nice guy in person. And that led to me going to the Scanza forums, and then Tukukuru's Awakening. A big shout out to all our Finnish friends watching. I just got noticed that Awakening was hopefully supposed to be scheduled later this year, but I think Finland has a prohibition on meetings of 10 people or more, and they haven't said when. So I do recommend shout out Tukukuru and Awakening, and we hope that we can go to those things again.
It sounds like you spent time you said Denmark, and then you've been in that area of the Baltic. So I'm particularly interested in what you felt. It sounds like you were in the lands of your ancestors from what you explained about your parents' heritage. So was there anything in particular when you were in those areas that your lineage comes from that you noticed or felt?
Most definitely. I appreciate every country that I visited, and some I like more than others, but I really appreciate my time. So I have to say that first. My father's father, and my grandparents on his side coming from Denmark, naturally. When I was at Köhne, I found out that the apartment that I rented was close to where my grandparents actually came from in that area. And when I traveled, even to different parts in Denmark, I felt like I was amongst my people. I know that sounds cheesy or corny, but I did have that feeling. And even when I would see my biological or genetic brothers and sisters, it hurt that much more when I saw them plagued with, as Jason uses the mean pathogens, a lot of that anti-white propaganda. And this is, I want to say, I appreciate all the places I've been to, but we get this concept of, oh, I'm going to move to Eastern Europe. I'm going to find a base trad wife and everything's going to be fine. And I'll live off my life in happiness and safety. Well, they have their own problems. And again, I'm not here to criticize them, and we can get into that later. It's almost like a balancing that, a lot of times when I was in Copenhagen, Denmark, I would visit friends in Sweden. And Sweden gets a bad rap. I know they are the poster boy of all the things that we worry about that we don't want to see. But because of that, Sweden does have a lot of great people in the dissident right. We have a lot of friends and supporters from Sweden. And sometimes it takes that level of, dare I say, clown world to kind of realize what we're losing. As the saying goes, you don't know what you have till it's gone. So, I mean, there are differences. Okay, so I've spent quite a bit of time in Ukraine. And then I dated a woman, was living with her in Latvia, Riga, Latvia. And then I dated a woman and was living with her in Budapest, Hungary. And I really appreciate my time there. These are different cultures with their advantages and disadvantages, pros and cons.
Yeah, and I want to definitely want to get more deeply into that. So why don't we do that now then? Anyone who's traveled and has the experiences you have, I always like to ask when they're on the show, if you could try to parse out some of on the one hand, the differences, the true diversity that we have amongst our people. And then on the other hand, the overarching themes you see that bind us, the basic characteristics that are the same no matter where you go in European civilization. And when I say European civilization, of course, I mean white civilization. I mean the diaspora countries too, like us here in the United States.
That's a very good question. It's a very tough question, but the toughest questions are the best questions to discuss. We definitely have much more similarities with our Eastern European brothers and sisters than we do have differences. But there are differences. Even, let's take, for example, Riga, Latvia. Riga, Latvia is a majority Russian-speaking city because during the Soviet Union, there was a lot of population transfers. So it is sad to say that now the rich Russians have certain areas in Riga where they expect the locals to speak Russian. Now, a lot of Latvians grew up speaking Russian. They had to learn Russian, but that does create a little conflict and resentment. To the average person, maybe from Western Europe or even of European settlements, Canada, America, New Zealand, we can ask ourselves, what's the big deal? Latvians, Russians, we're all Westmen of European descent. Well, there are economic issues, then there are social issues, and then there are political representative issues. Now that's one thing. To contrast that to what we think of, based Poland or based Hungary, well, here's the thing. I appreciate my time very much in Poland, especially in Hungary. I love the Hungarian language. I'm horrible at it, but I get to practice it when I'm there. We like to praise Orbán Viktor, or in English, Viktor Orbán, for his immigration policies. However, when I talk to the local people there, again, this is not a criticism, I'm just regurgitating what the locals have said, that they are critical of Fidesz and Orban Viktor because they see that there is a lot of corruption, that a lot of people simply don't care. When I try to explain, well, okay, you might have a little local city, state level corruption, but you have the ability and safety to walk in a major city, Budapest, at night. And they say, well, we don't care. We can care about where our tax money goes to. We care about the paved roads. So no one's perfect, and I'm not here to criticize these things, but I just wanted to make these differences, that we get this idea that when we'll just, everyone, all Westmen will just go to Eastern Europe, and Eastern Europe will be the stronghold and the bastion of Western civilization. There's nothing wrong with that, but I myself struggled just being there for a year, and I'm comfortable with maybe some of the languages there, and I was comfortable already living overseas, starting from scratch. That being said, I was able to make a great network of friends when I was over there, and that usually was people who did the same thing. They decided to take a job over in Eastern Europe or move their family in Europe. So it is a give and take.
Yeah, you were speaking a little about the political stuff and the higher level stuff. Anything you just observed in your day-to-day life with friendships, relationships, and that made you reflect on, again, just trying to drill down into the similarities, the mixture of similarities and differences, how you were viewed as an American, or how you, as an American, were able to adjust or not adjust to certain aspects of life where you were living.
Sure. I think the biggest difference is dating. And again, this is only going to be anecdotal because I'm a person and my experience is only my experience.
Well, I'm sure people will be interested in
dating.
It's everyone's favorite subject.
I would say that I had a great opportunity to date in Eastern Europe, and I was very lucky. There were dates where I had, there were nightmare dates, but I always had a funny story. But there were also some women that I met that I had a long-term relationship. And there were times that I wished that I could have developed that relationship into maybe marriage or having children. It did not work out. And I wasn't perfect. Maybe they weren't perfect. Hindsight's always 20/20. But dating can be a challenge when you, even with a work permit or with your own place, it can be tough because you don't have your family there. Even if you make friends, your friends didn't know you from childhood. And I was able to make guy friends, and it is important to have male friends no matter where you are. But that was a big challenge. You know, when it comes to the language, the situational irony is that young people today, let's say maybe under 35, they will speak English fairly well, at least in the countries that I've been in. And I always try to make the effort to speak the local language of where I'm staying at. And of course, I'm going to make mistakes. I make mistakes even in my native language, English. Most people will just say, oh, just speak English. They might get mad, like, oh, just speak English. But there's always that time where a person, let's say above 40 years old, or someone just doesn't have that English tutor, they don't speak English. So then they expect you to speak the local language. So it's almost like you're darned if you do and you're darned if you don't. That if you try to speak their language, you might piss them off. But if you don't speak their language in the right situation, you'll also piss them off. There is this balance. And I see Jason nodding. I hate to just keep you silent there. Jason, what do you think about that?
Oh, I'm totally in agreement, and I've heard many of the same stories. But before we go any further, I don't want to get too far away from this question I have for you, because you were talking about metal music. Oh, let me also first say, just for everybody, if you see me scrambling around here, it's because everything is a bit shambolic in the room, and we're setting up the new system so that we can serve White Wellbeing infinitely better, and it's only slowly coming into clarity here, screwing in the lens, as they say. But oh, and let me also, before I forget, who gave me this hat? Somebody gave me this great hat. I can't remember who it was. It was actually months. It might have been a year ago now. So thank you again to whoever that is. But I pulled it out to wear until the barbers are allowed to come out of their caves, their holes in the ground. But I did want to ask about the metal music and something I've noticed, and if I could just have you speak to it for just a moment. And that is that when most of us were younger, metal music was they allowed it, the anti-whites allowed it to be in the mainstream. They did everything they could to make it as anti-white as possible. Of course, they made sure that every band, you got to have a non-white member in your band, and he's got to be showcased, he's got to be spotlighted, and so there were a great many bands out there, and it leads a lot of our brothers and sisters out there to erroneous conclusions. First of all, that non-white musicians are somehow magical because they end up on the stage in every scenario. These bands are being selected. It reminds me of when the Olympics was in China, and all of these firms in the United States, engineering firms that were bidding to design the different facilities for the Olympics in China. I think it was a German firm that was the one who ended up winning that main weird bowl-looking shape thing, and they engineered that. That wasn't the Chinese, ladies and gentlemen. I love when white people say, "Oh, it's so amazing! Look what they've done! Like with a bullet train." Oh, really? Why don't you just go find out the two guys from Germany who? Of course, this is not true, ladies and gentlemen. You just have to ask Miss Wojcicki. But the two white guys who tried to take that idea to the German government. The German government said, "We don't want it. No, thank you. Don't have the money." And then Japan said, "We'll have it. Come over here and we'll build it and we'll put it across the country." And now you have all these white people that say, "Oh, the Japanese came out with the bullet train." So same thing. What happened with the German engineering firm that ended up getting the deal from the government of China was they hired a Chinese engineer to be on the staff. So all of these other firms went forward and they said, "Hey, we could do everything you want done," but one of them was shrewd enough to hire a Chinese engineer, and the Chinese said, "We'll have that group." Same thing happens with the bands, with these big record companies. They say, "Well, there is this one band over here. They're magnificent, but everybody in the band is white. So there's another band over there, and they have a non-white guitarist and a non-white drummer, whatever it might be." So that's how these bands end up making it onto the stage, where you then are set up to worship them. But having said that, nonetheless, the anti-whites, they did everything they could to make metal music as anti-white as possible, but it still provided in some small way, inescapably, because it was heavy metal, still provided in some small way this implicit white identity in it. It was something that we were doing, and white people really get into the guitar riffs, and white people really get into that kind of music. So it was still in some way providing also, not only by way of the music itself and the bands themselves, but an opportunity for other bands and other record producing companies that weren't owned by anti-whites to come in with one of those bands where it happened to be all white performers and start pushing that. And everybody ends up liking that band more and buying their records, and that record company gets rich and becomes a competitor. So what we ended up seeing was metal music has really been pulled back from the mainstream by the anti-whites. It's not out there like it used to be. And country music was they never allowed that to reach the same level of white identity that metal music had reached. They keep that as gelded as possible for white people, for white men. So if you could, your thoughts, your insights into this rollout of metal music, this attempt to control it with mean pathogens and poison it, our turning away from it. I mean, you look at the sales for things like the album Lies, where Axl Rose says a few very choice things in one of those songs. And that's the song that everybody ends up wanting to hear, the one that they tried to stifle, the one that they tried to censor everyone from hearing. So there was the rolling out and now the rolling back, so that they're just simply not allowing it to be mainstream. And now it is really shunted off into these alleyways where you have to be in a really unique community to still attend these things or find these things. So please go right ahead, brother. And also let me just also sing the hosannas again for you. Ladies and gentlemen, what Fullmoon Ancestry is doing here by using the dialectics, using the verbiage, and you can tell that our people, I do it, everyone does it, Fullmoon does it, Jared does it, we still kind of struggle. There's this push and pull between, well, we know the verbiage and the dialectics that work here in Going Free, but everyone else is still using these others. So we're kind of like, do we kind of like say both? It's like when you want to use a big word in a document, so you end up using the proper word, but then you also end up using the word that everybody knows that doesn't accurately say what you want to say. So it looks like you're being redundant. I guess you are, but we're stuck in this kind of a place. We all need to, especially now, as we see so much of what is referred to as the dissident right going down in flames. We all need now to push forward with all sincerity, with all tenacity, the lexicon and the dialectics that work, and get our people away from, I mean, we see in some circles where they're actually trying to go even further anti-white. They're starting to use anti-white slurs as though that's the proper way to go to get legitimacy and to gain clicks and the like. So, but having said that, so just to salute you and spotlight you again, Fullmoon, but please, just for a moment, your thoughts on the rolling out and the rolling back of metal music.
Sure, that's I definitely agree with all of that, and thank you for that support. Heavy metal, and it does hurt me to say this, you can always find some type of anti-whiteness or mean pathogens. Heavy metal was very big, and as much as I like a lot of the quote-unquote hair metal bands, you can actually ask yourself, well, why were these bands so big? Why were they allowed to get so big? Well, because a lot of those bands, I like these bands too, had a lot of makeup and looked a little feminine. And trust me, the songs rock and the drums, beat hard, but there was still that mean pathogen. There still was that implicit anti-white propaganda. And of course, there was always underground heavy metal behind that. And of course, you can argue, could that be considered heavy metal? Well, the hair bands, that was mainstream music, and even that had an element of anti-whiteness. And when you think about it, in the 90s, for better or worse, grunge did replace the mainstream metal. It replaced the hair metal. But when you look back at grunge, and there's a lot of grunge songs that I look back at nostalgically, what was the message? What was the image behind a lot of those grunge bands from the 90s? Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Stone Temple Pilots. I don't want to say that these were whiny lyrics, but they definitely didn't have a lot of oomph, a lot of masculine imagery, kind of almost opposite. I'm not here to bash those bands. When I hear a Nirvana song or a Stone Temple Pilot song on the radio, I was a little kid. It brings back memories, good memories. But what music do young white men have? Jason mentioned country, but even country, as he used the word gilded, because a country song, if you look at the lyrics, you do kind of notice that the guy is crying over a woman, and he'll accept a woman despite all her flaws. And he could only be happy if he had that woman, if that woman will accept that young white man. And that he has to admit that he is a fool, that he will swallow his pride in order to win that woman or be a true cowboy. And some country music is very catchy. I've lived in some states, and you hear the country music. So I'm not here to bash grunge music. I'm not here to bash country music. But I guess the question we have to ask ourselves, what music do young white men have?
Right.
Yeah, so the subject near and dear to me too. Since we're on the subject, why don't we keep going with it? So I'm a big believer, we've spoken about this a little bit, that even under the layers of confusion and mixed messages, there are certain genres of art and music that still, there's the kernel of our biospirit that's still there. And there's a lot of good cultural work being done in our spheres that are kind of surgically going in and separating the wheat from the chaff. I'm sure, I did an article on classic rock, you might know, for Countercurrents, but I'm sure you could do, and people do this, and there have been podcasts and live streams about this, where you could go into what you were talking about, like grunge from the 90s, and go dive in and kind of separate, okay, well, these were kind of the subversive elements that were anticipating the darker things to come in more recent times. But here are the elements that bear the mark of our people. Here's why, even in this imperfect form, it still resonated with us. It was still just an implicitly and inherently white thing. So whatever you're most passionate about, we know we've been talking about metal, but I want to bring in your interest in the Middle Ages, the history of medieval fantasy as well. I'd like to give you the floor to just present whatever you've observed and whatever's nearest and truest to you about how, yeah, again, in all these mainstream media, we all know, everyone listening, look, it's not going to be perfect. I mean, we could debate what perfect is to begin with, but just to quickly say it in the modern world, in mainstream media, you're always going to be able to find elements we might not like or agree with, or we think could be harmful or subversive or have a poison seed in there. But let's extrapolate what is in us and what we can rescue from these things. I think these are important conversations to have, so that, kind of like the upward spiral, now that we're getting to the next level on our journey up, we could take what we observe from these mass movements and these mainstream arts of the last decades and things that we all know and love. Those are reference points, but save what's good, discard what's bad, and use it to inspire whatever we're going to create now, what our artists and our counterculture and our white positive sphere are going to make now.
Most definitely. And I completely agree with you. And to try to tie this all in, I can honestly say that I agree with Jared. I would not be here today if it wasn't for art, the art of our ancestors, of our ancestry. Case in point is that in college, I really struggled. I didn't want to go to college, but my mom was nice enough to help me get a scholarship to pay for most of my college. I got into arguments with a lot of the professors. In my first year in college, I got an argument with a sociology professor. I got an argument with a history professor. I had to take a political science course. I got an argument with that. And the sociology professor was literally going to, make me give me an F and fail the class, and that would ruin my scholarship. So I had to keep my mouth shut
because you weren't towing the anti-white line.
Exactly. And this was just talking about maybe crime statistics that my father told me every day. So I spent a lot of my time in the college library just to have my sanity, just to have a break. But it was in the college library that I stumbled upon a section of, medieval literature and classic literature. There was a section in my college library that had all the Penguin classics. And everyone that doesn't know, Penguin Classics is a subsidiary of Penguin Books, Penguin Publishing. Now, I'm not here to spotlight them. They themselves have a lot of mean pathogens, but they had a series called Penguin Classics, in which they would take classical, medieval, and literature from the Renaissance, and they would color code it, as in the Greek and the Roman literature would be in purple, the medieval and literature from the Middle Ages would be in yellow, and literature from the Renaissance would have the spine of the book in red. And I saw a purple cover. I just kind of picked it up. It was Edward Gibbon's The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire, and it had a painting from one of my favorite heavy metal albums growing up. And I was like, oh, that's where it came from. And obviously, Penguin Classic just decided to use a classical painting to put it on this book. But I started reading the book in the intro. I mean, it's a really thick book, but I read it all. And Edward Gibbon's The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire, it's a very quote unquote based book. And then I started reading other books from the Greek and Roman periods. Then I got into the Middle Ages and the medieval literature. And I kept seeing a lot of the artwork from a lot of the heavy metal album covers and demo tapes that I, as a kid and teenager, grew up listening to. And to tie it back with music, so much of heavy metal is different genre. There's symphonic black metal, there is Viking metal, there is dungeon synth or dungeon ambient, and so many of these genres within metal tie in classical music or folk music or even folk instruments. Now, you don't have to listen to heavy metal. There are plenty of great artists. Chuck Martell's Garage Party coming up. You'll see a lot of great artists that they don't necessarily listen to heavy metal, but it is music for us. And you will get these influences from classical music. I've heard like Hurriyeth and Xurius. These artists are great, and they are introducing a lot of the folk melodies that you would not be unfamiliar to hear on a pagan metal album or a folk metal album.
And anything about medieval fantasy? I know you said that the work of Tolkien and medieval fantasy laden video games also, there does seem to be something about that. I've said this on streams before, Jason. I don't know if you remember me saying this, but we don't have fairs the way we have Renaissance fairs for other periods. We don't have like early modern periods where it's like the merchant guys with their frilly things, whatever those were called, when they started going out and making the Dutch East India Company. I mean, if you're interested in history, any history buff will have their particular eras that they're drawn to. But I'm talking about just for the average person out there. Why is it that even if you're not into the whole thing and you don't dress up, I think pretty much everyone here listening has probably been to a Renaissance fair at some point in their life. They're called Renaissance fairs, but they're really more, I would say it would be more accurate to call them Middle Ages, but maybe Renaissance is just easier to say. But there is something about that. I think there's an inherent order and hierarchy and something about kings and queens and looking up to that. But also just the imagery itself, fairy tales I talk about sometimes, just it presents our landscapes and characteristics and all of these things that feel like home to us. So anything you'd like to add about that?
Most definitely. And I always enjoy Jared George's article, who was writing on countercurrents long before I did and had his face and voice out in the public long before I did. So I've definitely enjoyed that. I definitely recommend to read a lot of articles on the Great Order.
I only have a few. I don't think I'm not a regular contributor the way you are carving yourself out to be. But we all have our focuses, but I appreciate that.
Right. Our mythologies, and I do want to say all the Greeks had their mythologies, and then the Romans had kind of their versions, but the Celts had their mythologies, the Slav people had their mythologies, and my favorite, the Finnic people. The Estonians have the Kalevipoeg, and the Finns have the Karelian, the Kalevala. So many of our people and our ancestors of our lineage had mythologies, which were in a lot of ways a mix of history and folklore, and probably more so folklore, but there had to be some history behind it. And this folklore and this cultural history has survived the ages. And this does spark a flame in the mind. It does spark a light in our hearts, because that is something that, whether it be a simple fairy tale you tell your kids, or whether you see an action movie that are based on some of those tropes, this is our people. These are our stories. And I'll even say this, that the Renaissance fairs, they actually are maybe a late 18th or early 19th century recreation of what those times would have been. And yes, the Middle Ages were very harsh times. I mean, most people died of dysentery. They had to drink, you had to give your kids beer because a lot of water sources weren't that healthy or sanitary to drink. But there is this idea that in the Middle Ages, we had our rulers and we had knights, and they warred with each other, and we don't want brother wars. But there is so much history and culture, and these are exciting stories. And of course, we don't want the Norwegians and the Swedes or the French and the English fighting today. But, you know, why is Game of Thrones so popular? Well, they base it so much on European folklore and mythology and history. And all people should be proud of their history and look to their history for inspiration, including us, people of European descent.
Yeah, and maybe in your closing comments, and we'll see if Jason has anything from the chat in the community here, if you could just tie that into what your goals are in terms of, you've stepped out as a writer, as a live streamer, so you have something to say. So what are your hopes? What are your goals? What's your vision for the trail you want to leave with your output, both spoken and written right now? How does it tie into all these things that we've been talking about?
Sure. Well, one of the main goals, whether it's writing or when I live stream on other platforms, I want people of European descent, white people, to rebuild our communities and recapture our culture. And these are big feats. They're no easy tasks. Well, how do we do this? Well, we do this in a lot of different methods. We have different people doing different things, and we see what works. We build on what works, and then what doesn't work, we try to discard or try to improve. The German verb sein, S-E-I-N, I try to use these abbreviations to remind myself my goals of writing. I want to share my ideas. I want to entertain. I want to inspire people to be their best. And I want to help people network so that we can build those communities. And when we build those communities, we are reestablishing our culture. When I write articles for Countercurrents, people know what they get, for better or for worse. I always like to draw upon stories or people or music or architecture from the past, talk about current issues and concerns of the day, and try to find at least some solutions or suggestions or advice moving to the future. Because if we can connect our past with our present and a guiding path in the future, then I've done my job. And if anything else, I want you guys to read my articles like you're getting an email or a letter from a friend. And that is my goal as a writer.
Yeah, they definitely have a personal aspect to them. And again, all of our guest links, if you're listening in the replay, will be on the post on our sites. But Jason, what is going on?
Well, good sir, we have a couple of financial gifts, and thank you all so very much for that. Over on Entropy, ladies and gentlemen, we're getting ready to begin to tap out the show. So if you want to pose any questions, make any comments, now is the time to do it. Any financial gifts as well. Entropy is up and running, and I even posted a poll there today, and I hope to be doing that more often to try to get some of you all over there and interacting with Entropy. We will have that up on the website again, and of course the anti-whites have just thrown a little bit of a stumbling block in front of us, but they will never stop us. And the poll over there on Entropy today is, did you listen to metal as a young person? Yes or no? So participate in that poll if you are over there. Let us know what you think. We have the great participant, JC Stalling, financially gifting over on Entropy. Thank you so much, very good friend, $10. And writing here, hail Jason and Jared, Fullmoon and Fullmoon Ancestry. What is going on, brother? Thank you so much for that. All good things. We are skyrocketing and climbing. I'm going to say it again. This is more than ever the time. I have a video coming out. I have some people in the government and acquired some information. None of it illegal, but nonetheless, things are moving into step that are deleterious, and we have to begin pushing as hard as the anti-whites are pushing, especially while there is this internal forest fire. All the things that we are doing, all the things that Fullmoon is doing now are salubrious. So it's the exact opposite of all that is harmful out there in the world today. It's the exact thing. It's the exact opposite of all that is pulling us down, the laws that are coming into effect, these different governmental entities and entities that are semi-government, semi-private. What Fullmoon is doing is refulgent, and you all can do this. You might not be able to write articles. You might not be, that's maybe not your talent. Maybe that's not your thing. Maybe you don't have the time. You might not have the time or talent to be able to make videos. That's a big pain in the ass. There's a learning curve there. You might not be comfortable in front of a camera or even hearing your own voice. You don't have to do that. You can go free yourself. You can improve yourself, recapture your destiny inside of yourself, spread going free. It's a curative contagion to your friends, family, and strangers around you. And the thing where you can help that Fullmoon is doing in just absolutely a sterling way, a scintillating way, is you can, when you are in the live streams of other shows, you can use our dialectics, you can use our verbiage, and the people there at first will say, oh, I've never seen that before. What exactly does that mean? You'll say it again. They might ignore it that time, but what ends up happening, and we're seeing this with content producers already in the white positive sphere, is that because these things work, victory is something you can't resist. So the push of the people in their communities using these things and it working time and again for them, eventually the content producers, whether they're ego driven or whatever their problem is, they will end up having to use these things because their audience will be using these dialectics and the lexicon and succeeding with it. And it'll just become so salient. People will be saying, why aren't you using it? We're having great effect. Why aren't you? So they'll just slip it in. Let's let them use it without talking about where it came from. So what? As long as it benefits our people and our community, and we become stronger and empowered as a consequence. And then you all can help to bring folks back to the wells, the well springs where they can get this information right here on tap, right on Fullmoon Ancestry's work that he's doing on D Live. And remember, because we received strikes from Wojcicki when we share links on YouTube that are not YouTube based. I know other people can share those links. We can't. I apologize. You will be able to get Fullmoon Ancestry's, all his links for Twitter, D Live, where he writes for Countercurrents. You'll be able to get it on the afterparty.tv. It will all be there. And make sure you become well acquainted with that site, because Wojcicki is going to decide one of these days, and who knows, Twitter and everybody else are going to decide no more. If you see what I'm looking at and what these brilliant people, got heroic people in the government that are providing the information to me, that I'm, again, illegal information that I'm going to be sharing as quickly as I can. When you see the kind of things that they are planning to roll out on us, there's not a bunch more time to continue to say, well, the Marxists are a problem. It's this country, white country, and that white country, and we have to look out for this white country and ignore that white country. There's no more time for that. No more time. We've got to push like the devil. And so having said that, let me jump over here. We had a great comment that I would like us to all speak to, because this is one of those, it was early on in the conversation, Mike Anderson with a brilliant comment. And folks, I know we're on the Discipline channel. Tag me as No White Guilt, but you can also tag me, now that I think about it, as I said, everything is a bit shambolic. I'm trying to get everything organized. We've got more monitors. And who was the gentleman who gave me money for specifically earmarked for a monitor? I want to be able to make sure I thank him, and we'll put his name on this monitor as soon as I can remember who it is. Somebody will have his name, and please remind me. When I look over here, hold on one second. The screen is not where I wanted it to be. Let me just jump back over. Mike Anderson making this comment. And I want to make sure we speak to this brilliant comment early on in the show. Oh, you can tag me as Discipline, and I should see you over to my left. You're right. But Mike says humans are composed of mostly of water. The full moon affects the tides and Earth's waters. The full moon affects mankind as well. And of course, Western kind is among mankind. Water is life. The moon affects both. So any thoughts? We'll start with you, Full Moon. Of course, Mike made this comment early in the conversation about when we were talking about your name and the full moon. And there's something more here than just the science of that I sense as I read this comment, something more there than just the science of the tides being affected by the moon and our intimate relationship with the tide vis-a-vis not only the water in our body, but some other spiritual quality as well. So do you have any thoughts on that? And then we'll pass it over to Mr. George for his thoughts.
Yes, that is a very great question. Thanks for all your donations. We are born at a certain time of the year, and we have the common question, what's your sign? Well, your sign are the characteristics that people born in your moon cycle will share. And of course, people read this for fun and shoots and giggles. But there is probably some truth to maybe some of these things. And it would not be out of the realm of possibilities to think, because women bear children, and you are in your mother's womb, and her cycle, for lack of a better word, is impacted sometimes of the cycles of the moon, that you yourself may have a personality or characteristics based on the time of year. And if you are born on a full moon, then it's probably one of the best times to be born in.
Does that imply you were born on a full moon?
I'm gonna have to ask my mom.
You have to look that up.
I'll come back on the next episode and verify that.
Well, there are certainly, if you search the archives of our websites and the TAP TV site, there are episodes, if you look up certain tag words, where we've taken time to get more into esoteric type things. But suffice to say for now, the best of the West includes that logical, scientific mind that breaks down the material of life and the mechanics of how things work, but also has that side that is connected to the more ineffable, ethereal parts of nature. Maybe you live in a purely mechanical way. Some people do. I think that that's imbalance, and it could cause issues if you go too far in that direction. Obviously, if you go too far in the other direction, same thing. So balance and harmony. We have a left and right side of our brain, left and right side of our body, male and female joined to create new life. Everything is about trying to negotiate and better balance and harmonize those two different poles. So yes, there's a tremendous place for the intuitive, for feeling a connection to things that you can't quite explain. Maybe there will be one day a way to explain it better scientifically. But I certainly believe, and I certainly live my life in a way where I acknowledge the connectedness. Everything is connected. It's not some kind of woo-woo throwaway statement to say. It's one of the fundamental differences, I guess, between how different people live. Some people just see themselves as thrown about and nothing really means anything, and it's all just kind of a mechanical. But some of us live in a way where we feel and see the connections of everything, as above, so below, and all of that. And it's a more magical, more fulfilling way to live, I think. I've dipped my toe in the other way, but it's not for me. But everyone's built a different way. I'm creative, I'm an artist, so I guess it kind of comes with the territory. But I certainly can appreciate what the commenter is saying.
Indeed, and there is a quite a bit of, I guess, spiritual association with the moon, with the sun, with nature that you will find in Prometheus Rising. And we are going to be having a big launch party. It is available right now. If you want to be one of those folks who acquire the book ahead of the official launch, which is roughly next weekend, and you can get a photograph of it. We asked this last week. Get a photograph of it, maybe in your hand, maybe by some of your favorite china, whatever it might be. Maybe beside the fireplace, so you're burning some incense by it, something of interest. And if you can DM that to me, maybe yours will be some of the pictures that we show over the course of the night. And then on that day, we would like everybody who has taken photographs of Prometheus Rising, Take Back Your Destiny, to tweet it, to gab it, to share it on your Facebook and everything, so that we can get it out to as many people as possible, because it is didactic. It teaches us everything we need to know about our strengths and weaknesses and how to use those to our benefit and how to prevent others from using those things to our detriment. Many layers of allegory, and you could go over each part of the story several times, and the really bright people, very bright, educated people have gone over Prometheus Rising, Take Back Your Destiny, and have found in each just little segment of the story multiple levels of meaning, even reading into, by way of the biospirit of the West resonating inside of them, finding more meaning than I was even able to put into it. That is how something really truly magical begins, ladies and gentlemen. This is an incantation, just like we had at PA when I was speaking there. We are truly drawing up the magic, the power of the West with the things we do. And that will give us the strength, that will give us the endurance, the creativity, and the courage to recapture our destiny on every single level. Let me get over to the financial gifts over on Cash App. We have the greatness. I love the name. Financially gifting $5 and writing here, thanks for your work. Well, you are most welcome. Thank you for your kind contribution to White Wellbeing. And 41 BMC, always a hero and participant, financially gifting $10. Thank you, my dear friend. Great topic today. Hail white culture. Indeed, we are the ones who are winning. We are the ones who are excited about what's happening. Let everyone else be melancholic or black-pilled, as the colloquialism is today. Let everyone else be down. We are succeeding. And of course, we see Zero Talent, who again is another one of the great heroes and participants financially gifting $5 and writing clean cut Jared, and I'm going wild. No barbers open. Same with me. No one here will cut it. Actually, there's a guy in the neighborhood. I knew this would eventually happen. That's saying, come over to my place. I'll cut your hair and make myself a few dollars. So let's hope that that does indeed come to fruition and he's not cutting any ears off. Maybe I'll head down the road and get him to cut my hair. But I think I've gotten so many compliments from wearing the baseball cap. I might occasionally work it in, even though I won't need it. Oh, got to jump over to my left hand here to take a look at. We did have 41 BMC saying hello, and also Coconut. Hello, dear lady, wonderful woman, wonderful husband. Definitely the kind of guy, if you ever had to drop the transmission out of your car, you didn't have a jack, you'd need somebody to bench press about 500 pounds. He's your man. He just, you unbolt it, let him take the weight, and then slide it off onto the ground, and everything will be fine. So great to see you, Coconut, and give a big hello to your husband. Okay, I think that's everybody over there. Let me check the chat over here, and we'll see. Once again, if you have any final questions or comments, make sure to get them in, or financial gifts, because we're wrapping up right now as it is. Okay, I found the screen. See what everybody has here. I think I saw Jay Esom said hello earlier. Yonash says a little late, but he's here. Great to see you. Rum Rum, hello to you. Of course, we have Mark is here. Great to see you. Let's see. I think I had. Oh, and of course, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only HB 2014. Make sure you follow HB at HB_2014 on Twitter. It is imperative that we build him up to the point of just colossus on Twitter, larger than anyone else in the white positive sphere. He takes his time. He's not being paid. He takes his time to make clips of people from across the white positive sphere, post those things on his Twitter. We need him to have repost the things that he makes. Please, let's have, every time he posts something, let's have 50 reposts. Why not? Why don't we have 50 reposts on every single thing right away that he posts, so that we can get this message and all of the good talking points that we are sharing here out to the masses of our brothers and sisters. Tall Kevin, how you doing, good brother? Says, check the entropy chats. All right, switch over to the left hand, and
HB was saying he gets frozen. His follower stats get frozen on Twitter. Like me, he said, like Jared George. I'm sure it happens to Jason and Fullmoon here as well. But I've been hovering around 3,800 for so long. It's like 37.99, 38.01. Then it goes up and down. I mean, it's impossible. It would stay like that for weeks and weeks and weeks, months, really. It's been. Now I'm just over 38, but it's funny. You get to these certain numbers and they just keep you there for a long time. So funny business going on there.
Yeah, something.
They're such popular guys.
Something not quite copacetic indeed. Let's see here.
HB 2014 supported me from the very beginning when I started streaming. That just goes to show how much he is in the know, not only all the big community leaders, but all the up and comers as well. So thank you very much, HB 2014. And thanks to everyone in this chat. Patriotic Weekly Review, TAP, Going Free. Everyone is like a family there. Everyone's friendly. They look forward to seeing each other. And I always try to make all the shows as well when I have the time, when I'm not writing. So a big shout out to the chat and the mods. I'm a big fan of you guys as well.
Appreciate that. And we have, let's see, we have, Tall Kevin was mentioning entropy. Now I have entropy /discipline with NWG open. I don't see anything in the question widget. And I just opened the entropy for no white guilt. And I don't know how to access if there is a question widget. I don't know how to access it when I'm not streaming live to that channel, but I do see over here that there is a financial gift from Simon of 10 pounds. Thank you very much. Hurling it all the way across the pond. Simon JJ, thank you, good friend. Writing, great guest, very inspiring chat. That's a good feeling in our community nowadays. It is indeed a good feeling. as we say, everybody else depressed and upset, and we are succeeding. And I just to the point out before we get final thoughts and any final comments or financial gifts here, that things are indeed, the anti-whites are seeing this as their opportunity, ladies and gentlemen. They are moving at the governmental level. They are moving at the multinational level, corporations. They are moving at hometown corporate levels. There is a way to resist this. There is a way to take back our destiny, and it is to get Going Free out to every single person you know as quickly as you can make it happen. Don't wait. Stop asking. This has been going on for years. Folks saying, well, I don't know, I'm going to drag my feet. The one guy who had a ruined, this was years ago before even doing YouTube, had a ruined relationship with his brother. Their whole relationship ruined over differences of opinion. He came to me and said, how can I reach my brother? We hate each other, but I love him. And how are we going to renew this relationship? We're both getting old, and I don't want to die this way. I shared with him the Going Free lexicon, the dialectics. He started slowly with his brother, and they are now deeply in love once again. They have their holiday meals together. His brother now totally understands. I don't know if the brother, I haven't talked to him in a long time. I don't know if the brother came all the way around to being white positive. But what he did do was he went from being so viciously anti-white that he couldn't stand that his brother cared about white well-being to a point where he said, well, geez, what you're saying is all about love. It's like nothing that you were saying before, that all you talked about before were all of these other groups, how awful they were, and focus in the wrong place, angle in the wrong place, direction, perception in the wrong place. Changed his life. So many folks here changing their lives. Be one of those folks. We got to move quickly. Evidence of that is, and more evidence, JK160 just shared with us in the live chat. The NFL is voting to reward teams with draft picks for hiring non-white coaches. The push is on. Just like I said, this is going to be the decade, folks. The storm of darkness and a storm of light. It's going to get much worse as they get more powerful, and it's going to get much better as we grow. This is our only means of defense. Irish Ice is here, and he's another one of the heroes that's out there finding leaflets everywhere, starting conversations. Why does Fullmoon keep saying whiteness? Even Jared said it once. Trying to get away from whiteness. Irish Ice is pointing out we use anti-whiteism, and the reason why is whiteness was created by anti-whites. That Noel Ignatieff, that was his big thing, and it has a full meaning of not only white people, but oppression and something we have to eradicate. So Goodyear, Irish Ice.
I don't remember saying whiteness. You'll have to give me a timestamp.
I'm guilty.
Well,
but I'm going free.
Yeah, we're all going free, one step at a time. And Irish Ice is one of the ones that helps. And I think you helped me one night, Irish Ice. I went astray somewhere. So thank you. And that's what I look for you all to do. If you're my friends, you're going to be helping me stay on track. Simon JJ says, I commented on Entropy via NWG channel. We found it, brother. And thank you for mentioning that. I'm still looking for the Tall Kevin comment. Evidence Violates says, a very happy white weekend to you, yours, and ours, my brother. Thank you so much. Much love back return. Happy to you. Happy weekend as well. And we have, okay, I got that. And Elaine Sabatino, Hale, Jason, No White Guilt, Jared George, Fullmoon Ancestry. This is a wonderful woman. She has made a big conversion in her life, coming to white well-being, serving white well-being, and going free. Another amazing, heroic story. So you say, Tall Kevin, that you financially gifted over on Discipline with NWG. I am not I'm only seeing the JC Stalling.
Gardening.
He said on gardening? Yeah. Well then, I guess that still exists, even though.
Yeah, the channel, Kevin, was deleted about 2 weeks ago by our friends in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's possible. It's linked. The Entropy was linked to that channel.
I can make it happen. Why don't we do this as I'm making it happen? It'll take a moment. Why don't we do this? Let's get Fullmoon to tell us what he's working on, where he can be found, what's coming up next for him, and how positive are you about the coming months and years in service to white well-being? Are you already seeing change, and where do you think things are going, brother?
Well, I am always working on the next article for Countercurrents. Again, I usually submit it Sunday night or early Monday morning. It pops up Monday or Tuesday. And I always have thoughts not only the next article, but the next 2 or 3 articles. So definitely check out counter-currents.com. I do have a Twitter account, which is fullmoon-ancest1, or you can just search on the internet for Fullmoon Ancestry. My Twitter account, I always give an update alert of when I'm streaming, when I go on other people's shows, and most importantly, when I have my article uploaded. But most importantly, I want you guys to support Jason Köhne, No White Guilt, and the Great Order, Jared George, because I also know that Jared is a great author, musician, and poet. And I was reading one of his earlier articles where he talked about Odin and the Havamal. For people that are into Norse mythology, the Havamal is simply the sayings of the High One, and it gives people guidance and suggestions on how to live their life. And one of the most famous quotes for that goes like this: cattle die, friends die, you yourself will die too. But I know one thing that will never die: the reputations of honorable men. And I am literally here right now between 2 great men whose reputations will never die, because Jared George always, again, on his website and his great work and all the things he does, he highlights the great literature, the art, and the music of our people to keep it alive. And No White Guilt, Jason Köhne, gives us a tool set, a lexicon of verbiage of going free from all the anti-white propaganda in fighting the mean pathogens that have plagued us all our life. Guys, I know some people might like the verbiage, some people may not. Use what's best for you, but I promise you that I use that verbiage very often, and I've heard and seen other people use it too. We always want to grow our community and our culture, and we're doing it by, again, keeping the past alive like Jared does, addressing the issues of the day like Jason Köhne does, and I try in my articles to write like I'm writing to a friend, and give a friend, all of you, advice and suggestions to move forward for the future for our people.
Thank you so much. That was brilliant, brother. Thank you. That's the kind of thing that we need to hear. That's the kind of thing that we need to hear and live from day to day. You have something you do. As you can see, Fullmoon Ancestry really coming into his own, a rising star, and they're going to end up being one of our pole stars on our nighttime sky. And all of you out there, remember, when you decide to contribute, you are going to end up, nobody's going to be forgotten. You are going to make it into our hall of heroes. You are going to be in the stories of your families that survive and pass through the eye of this needle. You are going to be the people to whom the songs are sang by the children in years to come. And I do have Tall Kevin's, I was able to pull it up over on the machine over here to my left, a financial gift of $3. Thank you, my dear friend. And writing here, married to a woman, if we could just get a quick response from Full Moon on this and then get Jared's closing thoughts. Married to a woman from Eastern Europe, over time, I have noticed many cultural differences, especially when it comes to cooking and diet. Nothing major, but some are odd. Full Moon, have you noticed this as well?
Yes, I am very big fan of the cooking and dishes and recipes from Eastern Europe. If your biggest problem is with a woman that she has a rich diet and cooking style, then Tall Kevin, we appreciate your donation. Consider yourself lucky as well. Thank you.
Amen to that. Yeah, if your lady can cook a wonderful meal, keep you healthy, and you'll have many wonderful days together. Mr. George, what are your final thoughts? Anything positive to share? Where can folks find you?
All right. Well, I, of course, want to thank Full Moon on his first appearance on Tap, and for all the good work you do, and for sharing your positive thoughts. I'm a big believer in that myself. People are so quick to cut each other down or make negative comments, not really in our circles, but just in the wider world. And it's very easy when you're up here to seem sycophantic. And I think that's a kind of shaming too that we need to be careful of. Some of you may know if you've listened to me for some time, I believe in if someone's inspired me or I appreciate their work, I tell them. I'm not trying to kiss their asses or get in good with them. When Jason is doing something, or when he's like, we're going to next week celebrate Prometheus Rising, I'll celebrate his brilliance. He's my friend and colleague, but I am still inspired by our friendship and our partnership, and all that positive energy goes back and forth. When you feel that inside and you appreciate someone, there's no shame. You're not being less of a man. You're not being a sycophant. If you do it the right way, people can tell when it's balanced with the other correct elements. You show your appreciation, and you share that energy. Good energy builds more good energy. There's a reason you go to a concert and you're around 10,000 other people. You don't sit in the pews in the stands by yourself. When you clap after a song, it's not going to feel the same as when you're with 10,000 other people and you're all cheering. That energy is palpable. We need to get each other going. We need to get each other's motors pulled, like when you're getting the old style lawnmower started. Fullmoon, I appreciate what you're saying, and we look forward to seeing great stuff, great work from you for many years to come. So thank you so much, and I hope to speak soon. So people are asking in the chat, and I know some of you may be new here. We love seeing new people. Even some of you who are not so new, we understand that the big tech companies and big tech platforms are just where you go. It's where you check into on your app. You have maybe the bell hit and you get the notifications when they do work. But guys, we're not going to be on these forever. You see what's happening with our channels. People are asking, wait, are you only on Discipline now? It's changing all the time. Jason still has his main channel, but there are strikes, there are reasons. Please, I don't want to sound like a school teacher, but get in the habit of checking our site first. We made that site so that whatever happens on social media, there's still somewhere where you can go, you can hear from us, you can see what's happening. It's not about the platform, it's about the community. We can move this party to other places. If I gave you a flyer and I said, okay, this week's party was at this venue, next week's party will be at this other venue. It's about the party and the people and the community, the artists, not so much about the venue. You don't show up to a theater when there's nothing going on there. So we know we're playing on enemy's ground, and we will use these platforms as much as we can. But the writing is on the wall. It's not going to be around forever. Please bookmark our page. Follow us on other alt tech platforms like Telegram. You can watch these shows, not this week. We have to set something up because the gardening channel was taken down. But usually you can watch our shows right embedded on the site when we are live. No one else, as far as we know, has done this yet. We worked with Entropy to make that happen for you. Please also sign up to our newsletter. So that is my speech on that, but it is for all of us to continue doing this good work and sharing that positive energy that I just spoke to. My own site is thegreatorder.com. So aside from the shows that I do with Jason, the other material I do is all there, searchable, how to contact me. I am working on music. I'm making good on something I've been talking about for a long time now, which is getting that up and going. So there'll be a little more time, but the work has begun on really getting more serious about that and making my contribution to the cultural sphere musically as well. Very excited about that. So stay tuned, be teasing you with some information, and appreciate you sharing anything when it is out. But other than that, as I said, next week's tap, big celebration for the standalone version of Prometheus Rising. Go check it out. It's amazing cover art on the back and front. And we'll be getting all deeply into that. After this, 7:30 Eastern is Chuck Martell's Garage Party, when Jason started to play music and some other arts from our spheres. And then at 8 o'clock on 4Null's Be Live, he has his White Rock Hour. So go check that out right after Chuck Martell. Friday nights are getting really busy around here. It's a good thing. We have these big cultural Friday nights. So a lot of entertaining programming for everybody. With that, I hand it back over to Jason to take us out.
Thank you so much, good brother. And I echo everything back to you that you were saying. Let's get a big round of applause, actually, for Fullmoon Ancestry. No one yet has come on the scene making videos and so adopting and implementing the dialectic and the strategy. This goes exactly to what Mr. George was just saying, ladies and gentlemen. And this is the exact way I feel. And I've said it before. I'm going to say it quickly again before we wrap up, because I gotta finish up the garage party so we can be ready to begin this is the beginning of the Friday night fun, and we're going to just continue with that and then head on over to Full Null and the Whack Pack, the White Art Collective, and the show he does there. So is this. There are no podiums and lecterns. There is no stage in the middle of a football field where everyone else in this community, in service to white well-being, our particular sphere inside of the totality of the white positive sphere, there is no stage where there's a spotlight on one person who gets himself all of the attention, who gets himself all of the praise, who makes whatever money there is going to be made. There is no such thing here. We are a team. We are working together, and you can use any amount of sports analogies, whatever's your favorite sport, team sport that is. You can use scouting analogies, military analogies. You can use anything you want where a team gets together, they pull their resources together, they pull their intelligence, their pasts, what they have brought with them in skills that they have acquired, their education, their courage, where they all come together and they lock arms. And we say often here, shield over shield, spear over spear. We form a wall as a team, and we are going to advance our cause of white well-being in full love. And that means that some of these people, just like we found out this past week, well, one of, I didn't even tell you, Jared, I wish I could, Angriel in our community is a Black woman who is white positive, and she's wants us to go free. She wants us to recapture our destiny. So she came on. She was one of the callers. So we are all coming together. We are going to bring all of these different communities together in love, whether you are from the United States or from Estonia or from New Zealand, whatever it might be. A great white ring around the world. The white roses will bloom everywhere, even as the rest of the foliage sickens and dies around the world, and we will absolutely recapture our destiny. I want to say a great big thank you to Ray, who was moderating tonight. Hats off to you. Not an easy job, often thankless, but we do our best to appreciate every single participant in the community in service to white well-being. Big thank you, of course, to Mr. George and all of the diligent and hard work that he does to make sure that these shows are entertaining and educational for you. So thank you so very much, Mr. George.
Likewise for you wrestling with all the tech and the computers. You have this whole... we should see, like in those old 80s movies on the nuclear submarines. I picture you going back and forth on this desk with all these contraptions. Wait, we have to check this computer for these super chats, but then this computer for the Cash App super chats. And so,
yes,
right, gotcha.
It would be, thank you. It would be much easier if we didn't have to contend with the anti-whites. All of this is because we are constantly being censored. So those people across the community also that claim these no-face, no-name losers who come out of the rotten wood and want to say, well, how are these people able to be on? How are Jared George and Jason Köhne able to be on these? Go to hell, buddy, or girl, or somewhere in between, hermaphrodite, wherever you are in that spectrum, because we are constantly being censored. We're constantly creating new accounts. We're constantly sneaking back in the back door of their club to continue to spread the word to our brothers and sisters. So it's incessant, the censorship. I want to thank everybody who was commenting today in the live chat. We love you all. Thank you so much. Everybody who financially gifted as well. A big thank you to every single one of you. And let me give a spotlight to some folks that I just saw cruising around the chat today. I saw Isaac in the chat today. Spotlight to you. I saw, I'm not sure, this is an Irish name. Is it Eh? Is it pronounced Eh? Hello to you. Great to see you. Saw Lisa here today. Alleluia was here. Ardo was here as well. And so was Southern Daily News. That better be good as a Southerner, I'm telling you. Whatever it is that you're reporting, it better be good news. It better work out for us. But great seeing you here as well. Folks, we've had a great time tonight. We're going to have a great time with the garage party and on over to Fornal coming up right after that. But Mr. George and I, as we said, we'll be back next week. We're going to have a slew of all-stars showing up to talk about things esoteric. And we're picking through that lineup right now. If you have any particulars you would like to see, let us know. And we're going to be diving in a bit into an area that we don't normally dive into. As Mr. George is wont to say, we definitely have the scientific mind, but we have really lost the connection with the genuine esoteric. And where we talk about where is the esoteric, it's not this internal, the genuine esoteric. It's not this internal search within, as though you're going to find some sort of connection via umbilical cord to something that doesn't exist out in space and time. Nor are you going to find who and what we really are by just digging in the soil of the earth looking for the things that we've built in the past, the pottery and what we've written in the past. No, it is in between those things. It is between the biospirit that resonates in our hearts, in our very being, and that which we create. It's that middle space, that invisible middle space that is yet to be explored. That's what we're doing. That's where we're going to find our identity. And ladies and gentlemen, that's where we're going to find our victory. And we look forward to seeing you all again next week.